talks with management. My next guest says while it is impossible, of course, to predict whether Pershing's involvement will result in a management change or major asset sales, he believes it could ultimately benefit shareholders. That's what counts. Joining me now for more on this, Jason Seidel. He covers the transportation sector for Dahlman Rose. Jason, a pleasure. Thanks for coming in. So when you heard that Bill Ackman had taken this 12.2% stake in Canadian Pacific, did you kind of think, why is he doing this? Although we've seen underperformance from Canadian Pacific in the past.
Well, Pim, we have. It wasn't a total surprise that somebody went activist on CP, and it wasn't a total surprise that we've seen activism in the railroad space before. You recall that the Children Funds took a stake in CSX a few years back when they were underperforming somewhat. But if you see some of the steps that CSX was taking prior to TCI taking a stake and then subsequent to TCI getting involved, CSX started performing really well. But I think that has a little bit more to do with management at CSX than it did really at TCI and some of their initiatives. But if you look at CP for the last year, it's been a chronic underperformer. Now, I don't want to get on the management too much right now because, you know, the first quarter, when you have avalanches taken out of mainline, you're going to look past that a little bit. But we've had weather events in 2Q, weather events in 3Q. You know, at some point you have to take some accountability for running the railroad a little bit, and I think that's why the activists got involved.
What about the idea at Canadian Pacific of separating the operating business from the actual tracks and real estate? Is that possible?
I think anything's possible, but I think if you've seen over the last couple of years when this has been brought up to railroads, this has been pretty much poo-pooed by almost every management. And, you know, I really think the Canadian government might have a little bit of a problem with that. If you really look at what CP does, the bulk of the railroad, call it 45%, is really heavy commodities. You're talking potash on the fertilizer side, export coal, grain, going from Winnipeg to the coast for export. So this is very vital to the Canadian economy. And I think
strategic.
Absolutely. I think the government will have something to say before a New York hedge fund will.
So what do you think that the process is going to be? I mean, I just mentioned Bill Ackman says that he's going to hold talks with management. What's he going to say?
Well, listen, I think there's a couple things. I mean, one, obviously, I think this company needs to be a little bit better prepared for weather events. Railroading is an outdoor sport. You can't be the only one consistently blaming weather, especially when you have your main rival up there in Canada, Canadian National, posting the best margins in the rail industry, and you're posting the worst margins in the rail industry.
Yeah, it's a real comparison between the two.
Absolutely, and they're actually completely different businesses. When you think about, we said CP is a bulk railroad. Canadian National is really a merchandise railroad, and they run scheduled trains. If you think about it, that should be a little bit of a harder operation, barring no weather events, than it is running bulk trains, you know, to and from the coast.
So what about the stock of Canadian Pacific, of CP? Do you think that people should buy it?
No, we have a hold on. We have a hold on it for a couple operational issues, and if you look at what's happened this year, they've actually lost business to Canadian National, really on the service-sensitive intermodal side of him. Now, you know, CP saying, well, we're going to win it back based on service, and CN saying, we're going to keep this based on service. So that tells me we could have pricing wars on this.
What do you think is the best stock, though, to own in the railroad space right now?
We have two favorites right now, Pim. They're both in the U.S. We like Norfolk Southern out east and Union Pacific out west. We like Norfolk Southern for their export coal exposure, which is actually doing quite well. And also Norfolk, if you recall, they really ramped up a lot of their hiring before a lot of other railroads. They have some productivity. UNP, Powder River Basin Coal, and a lot of their contracts are coming up for renewal, their legacy contracts, so they should get pricing above the industry averages.
Maybe they'll make some more money. All right, thank you very much. Jason Seidel joining us from Dahlman Rose talking about the railroad industry.